Yeah, I guess that's a really good point. I probably should know like why I care about money before I ask my girlfriend why she cares about money.
Go back to the example with maybe that man makes less.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
Are they and their partner acknowledging the other contributions to the household?
Ooh, that's a good point, Dan.
If we have a situation often where someone's maybe staying home and taking care of the house and the children, allowing the other person to put focus elsewhere. That's a hell of a job staying home and doing that, right? And a lot of times we'll get into conversations like, for example, with life insurance, and that couple will never think to insure the person staying at home. Big mistake. Because if that person's not there and you have to pay for childcare and services around the house and or whatever that person's providing, that's going to be really expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to Critical Thinking Required, hosted by LBW. This podcast is intended for free thinkers, entrepreneurs, and knowledge seekers. Join us as we discuss relevant financial topics, explore with guests their financial journeys, and engage with experts in industries such as space, media and entertainment, real estate, and many more. Buckle up and enjoy the ride.
Welcome to Critical Thinking Required. I'm your host today, Kennedy, and we're back again with Dan. So today we are continuing our series on relationships and finance, or finance and relationships. So far we've talked about how to discuss finances with your kiddos as the parent, how to discuss finances with your parent as the kiddo. And then now, finally, we're going to be talking about how to discuss finances with your romantic partner. We need hearts. Add in some hearts.
We're walking into Valentine's Day. This is perfect.
This is perfect timing. Yeah. So we kind of wanted to start off with a fun little statistic we found from TD Ameritrade a couple years ago. They found that 41% of divorced Gen Xers and 29% of boomers say that they ended their marriage due to disagreements about money. We don't want to let it get that far. We want to start talking about this now. Some long, happy marriages. Let's beat the statistic.
Mm-hmm.
So when Dan and I were talking about this, we kind of come up with three distinct phases that we thought of talking about finances and relationships. What were those phases, Dan?
I think we're going to talk about the dating phase.
Ooh, the dating phase.
Yeah, that's usually pretty
a good
fun.
place to start.
It is. And then I think we're going to cover like building a routine, right? So a little more serious into this piece, sure. Right? And then it becomes really kind of managing that.
Yeah. Makes sense to me.
That's the cycle.
The cycle of relationships and finance.
Behavioral finance is a fascinating thing. And so we're hitting it right at the head here. And this is something that we get all the time working with clientele. Our clientele, many of them tend to be in a situation where they're 30s, 40s, they're looking for that partner. Number of them have put other priorities ahead of themselves. Life goes in so many different directions. Now they're coming back to this, and the way they live their life is very set. They have their own routine. They're bringing someone else into it. And we know that money can really enhance a lot of things, or it can really become a major distraction.
Sure. And I mean, even outside of that demographic, right? If you're looking for a romantic relationship, you're probably going to have to talk about finances at some point with them, yeah. Right? So this is kind of applicable to most people, assuming you're in the dating game. So Dan, what should we consider when we're talking about finances with our partner? How do we even bring the subject up? Like when is the right time?
Finances and relationships, there's some big similarities from a planning standpoint and really kind of from a relationship standpoint and bringing in the subject matter. So if you want to be successful about this, you have to talk about this in the right way at the right time. And you're really building something here. Mm-hmm. So starting with really kind of what money means to you and knowing that, right? You have to know yourself very well, I think. Right. Anyways, dating before you really date anybody else, to be fair. And the same with what money means to you. And we all have our experiences. They run very, very deep on this subject, starting typically in childhood. And we know that our partner's experiences are going to be different. So understand yourself and then figure out how you want to approach your partner, knowing that they're going to be different about this.
Yeah, I guess that's a really good point. I probably should know like why I care about money before I ask my girlfriend why she cares about money. probably a good point there.
It's got different meanings, right? Like
yeah. What does money mean to you, Dan?
For me,
Yeah.
and I think it's a prioritization, right?
Sure.
I don't think this is all money means to a
Mhm.
person, right? But there's different levels, right? Money can mean empowerment, money can mean safety,
Mhm.
it could be a reward for hard work. I mean, for me personally, money has always been a security piece. And in conjunction, I guess, I don't know if one outranks the other so much for me, but it's been a resource to be able to do things for other people and provide security for myself, right? Like for myself, I don't spend money on myself.
What? Dan doesn't spend money on himself?
I don't, right?
It's
She
true.
knows this.
We badger him to spend money on himself.
Do.
Buy the shirt, Dan. Please buy the shirt.
It's worked for me for 20 years. I don't need to. But that's, that's just knowing myself on that.
Yeah.
But and I think we'll come to this too. That actually can be an issue too.
Sure.
Right? Like people might want to buy me things.
Yeah.
I'm not so good at that.
What? Dan's not good at receiving gifts?
No.
What?
No. And so that's a struggle for a person's partner potentially,
Sure.
because it's nice to give people stuff. I recognize this. I love giving people stuff, right? It's not quite fair if I can't allow them to do that too.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point too, because if you were going in with like that mindset, like, why are you buying me gifts? Like this isn't meaningful to me. And then the other person's like, but I want to show you love. Like this is how I do it. Like accept this gift. So if you don't have that understanding, well, there's a room for a rom-com miscommunication movie right there.
100%. Yeah. So understanding what it means to you makes sense. There's nothing wrong with feeling like spending on yourself is important.
Sure.
You do work hard. That maybe is how you value that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of, I think, being honest about it and communicating it.
Sure. And that recognition of like, oh, that's what that means to me.
Yeah. Different values for different people.
Sure.
And they don't have to be the same, by the way. That's fine. I don't think you have to be in a relationship with someone and have the same viewpoint on money.
Yeah.
It's not likely going to happen all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe on big things. So like in a romantic relationship, for example, being a bit frugal or like finding the deal, I find that super sexy. I do. Go ahead and spend your money, but like I love that you got a great deal kind of deal. So deal kind of deal, that sounds funny, but nonetheless, I think that that's really a critical thing to really kind of grasp. Sure. and understand that like I may not do it. I'm totally cool. Someone else does that. It shouldn't be, it's not about so much fairness. It's really about just the flow of how that's going to work and the understanding of it, communicating it.
Yeah. And I think that that's like important too, in like knowing how your partner views money versus you as well, because like maybe I'm the kind of person where I really value like an experience. Like if I'm going to go on a vacation, I'm going to spend some money on that vacation. I'm going to like have the time of my life, but maybe my partner is like, oh no, like we need to save that. Like, why would we waste that on this experience that we're only going to have memories of when we could be putting this towards X, Y, and Z, that's really valuable to me, that experience, in the same way that maybe like my partner would value putting that money forward to something else.
Yeah. So, or it could be something like your partner really finds putting money into their hair a
Sure.
big deal.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's cool. If it's going to make them feel great.
I get it. I spent some money on my hair. That's super valid.
I don't. Yeah. And your hair looks great.
Thank you. Yours looks great too.
Thanks, Kennedy. A question that we get all the time is, and actually we don't get it, we bring it up a lot.
I think I know where you're going. Yeah.
Is it important for your partner to make money or make as much money as you do?
And it's okay if the answer is yeah. Sometimes it is important.
It is okay. It's really uncomfortable, we find, when we ask people, but we're in this really great, I mean, honestly, it's one of the greatest rewards of the way that we practice finance is clients come to us and they share their life narrative because they really should be parallels. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that is, hey, like I'm crushing it at work or doing it. I've gotten to this point where I never thought I would be. Maybe I had to make sacrifices, probably did, to get there. And now I'm trying to find this partner. And we'll talk about this as the dating pool, but we'll go over all these different things. And a lot of times what doesn't come up, it should, is, well, do you care about what your partner makes? And a lot of times we get a no, I really don't, but it should be examined. Sometimes we get a, oh yeah, I kind of do. And a lot of times actually there's almost like a guilt when someone tells us that.
No shame. It's okay.
It's if it's a factor, it's a factor, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why it could be a factor.
Sure.
It may be, for example, it is an indication, and again, this also may not be the case, but maybe for you, it's an indication of ambition. Is money an indicator of desired growth for you? And is that something that's attractive or not? Is it a matter of, a lot of people find what people do for work something that is really attractive. So is that something that is a turn on to see your partner really kill it at work or not?
Something I've noticed quite a bit is a lot of our lady clients, especially like women in general in the workforce, not to get too into sociology, but often have to sacrifice a lot to get forward in that job. And so when they're up there making those like higher numbers, like sometimes it is important for their partner, the man in the relationship, if it's a heterosexual relationship, to make just as much or more than them. And that's okay.
You bring up a great point, because we have more female clients than we do male clients. And so this is a conversation we get all the time, where this female demographic has absolutely had to work harder than their relative similar male demographic to get to where they are from a career standpoint. We see that all the time. And they also have things like children that may be a ticking clock for them on top of it that they couldn't focus on. Now they are.
Yes.
Right. A lot of our clients are right at that 40 when they join us, and they're like, I've got to get on this. And that's real. And that's a real challenge. I'm sure that one of the many privileges of being a man, I don't have to experience, but I could be empathetic to what they're looking at. And so a lot of times those conversations do occur where, even though they've climbed that ladder, that doesn't mean that the pay scale has climbed in correlation to that. And so they could be in a situation where they've worked very hard to get where they are financially. And for them, it's therefore really important that they have a person that has done that as well too.
Yeah.
It might be a situation where, even though in a world where we're creating equality, there are still social norms. There are still things you've grown up with, where it might be a situation where you just feel like that has to be in place because it's an attractive or not attractive component to your partner. It could be subconsciously threatening your insecurities if that person isn't earning something, or isn't earning what you're earning, or isn't earning more than you. We do indeed see that. And then, of course, it could impact your lifestyle. Now, that may not matter. We have plenty of people that will say, I don't care. This is something that I had because of family wealth. This is something that I've earned, and I don't mind sharing this. But one of the issues that we find, again, particularly with female clients coming to us, is that they have a really hard time finding men that are comfortable with the fact that they make less. A lot of times that's not the issue that we're seeing from this particular client. It's they're having issues because perhaps their partner feels insecure they're not making as much, or they feel like they're not masculine because of that, which I've never felt that way, but I understand that definitely is out there. So how do you counter that? How do you be sensitive to that and make it really not an issue, or less of an issue that it should be? And sometimes you just can't. I had a client who's a close friend of ours now that made a comment to me back in October that I've used many times over. It's fantastic. Where she asked, what do most women from a primal one word feel like they need to have in a relationship, and what do men feel they have to have? Ooh. And it was really a great question. Here's the answer that she gave. And so she said, most women want to feel safe, whatever that means. That can mean different things. And most men want to feel significant. Now, that's obviously not true from everybody. I think
Sure.
from what I've seen, it's a lot more true than not.
Mm-hmm.
And when we talk about money, it has the power to do both those things or the opposite.
Yeah.
It can make someone feel
Absolutely.
really safe or really not safe. It can make someone feel really significant or not. And again, there's different ways to do that. Go back to the example with maybe that man makes less.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
Are they and their partner acknowledging the other contributions to the household?
Ooh, that's a good point, Dan.
If we have a situation often where someone's maybe staying home and taking care of the house and the children, allowing the other person to put focus elsewhere. That's a hell of a job staying home and doing that, right? And a lot of times we'll get into conversations like, for example, with life insurance, and that couple will never think to insure the person staying at home. Big mistake. Because if that person's not there and you have to pay for childcare and services around the house and whatever that person's providing, that's going to be really expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's other contributions that are made to the financial picture that may not be directly actually monetary. You know, the other piece too, I think, when considering dating is that even if it doesn't change your quality of life, maybe it betters your quality of life, again, because you weren't spending all that anyways, and now you're doing it with someone else, or you're bettering their quality of life, maybe betters your quality of life. Maybe that's not actually the big thing at play, but it is going to change your budgeting. Like, relationships are not cheap. They shouldn't be, right? You should be thinking about that person and doing extra things and having those experiences. So it's gonna, I don't know anyone who's not been in a relationship and then goes in a relationship and says, oh, this was cheaper.
Yeah. Yeah.
That doesn't happen. So your budget's going to change. And so you got to kind of understand that. And the sources of income that your partner might be bringing in might be very, very different than what you're looking at, right?
But you don't know yet because you haven't asked.
You don't know yet, but you could be looking at variable income. Maybe that makes you feel really uncomfortable. So you have to understand that. Maybe they don't get paid on a regular basis, right? Typically speaking, partners here get paid quarterly. So, you know, it's really kind of like, how do you navigate that? What does that kind of do from a cash flow standpoint as well, too? Just understand how those payments come through.
Now, all of this, Dan, this was all in just the dating phase.
I know.
Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy. I mean, yeah, things to consider, how it's going to shrink or enhance the pool of people that you can possibly date. Yeah, it's a lot that goes into that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, phase one. But then, like, now, let's say, you know, you found someone, you're like vibing, you like them, you want to keep them around. Now you got to build a routine. What does that look like? So that's what we're calling the I want to make this work / integrate phase. So Dan, like, how do we talk to our partner about this stuff if like these things are applicable?
Behavioral finance at its best.
Yeah, like,
now we're getting to some psychology.
It's kind of scary.
It is. So what are triggering conversations that we're going to have? People don't like talking about money.
No.
And it's already a very intimate subject. And now you're talking about with the person that you can be most intimate with.
Yeah.
So these could be levels where you don't talk about this with anybody else, and maybe never will.
Yeah.
So it's heavy.
It is. It is. But, like, you know, eventually we're probably going to move in together. So you might want to talk about finances before it gets to that point, right?
There could be shared finances, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, good point. Does it make sense to join finances?
Yeah. When you move in, when you get married?
I'll tell you what, we get this question all the time as to when should we do this? Guess what? There's no answer to it. The answer could be never.
Yeah.
You can live together and not have joint finances.
That would be wild.
It happens, and it's and sometimes it makes a lot of sense. You can have joint finances on some things and some things not. A lot of times we'll see people will have household expenses joint, other things not, right? And it could be very tactical. For maybe there's a reason why some things aren't. It could be a reason that is tax related. It could be a reason that is benefit related. For example, maybe one person is going back to school.
True.
And so maybe, you know, getting married messes some aid up there, right? Or sharing some finances could potentially do that. It could be a situation where people just need to they know that there are triggering behaviors. So you create routes to be able to have some money on the side, know about it, but so that they can actually do X, Y, and Z, right?
Sure.
I mean, my ex and I always had separate finances. We knew about each other's finances. We had access to see that whenever we wanted, but it just was easier to do that. If you want to get a gift for somebody and you don't want them to see it all the time, it could make sense.
That's a good point. I didn't actually think about that one.
Well, there's a lot of reasons to kind of put it together. The point is that there's no right or wrong answer to this, but I think sometimes people think there is.
Yeah. Something along kind of a similar route is like prenuptial conversations. Yeah. When do these come into play, do you think?
Sometimes they don't.
Sometimes they don't.
And that's okay.
Okay.
Sometimes they should and they don't. and sometimes they do. We get into these conversations all the time. And usually there's a good reason for it. Sometimes not, right? But my personal opinion on this, for what it's worth, is that it often creates feelings. I understand where the feelings are coming from, but are not placed correctly. A lot of times these prenuptial conversations don't need to be destructive conversations. I think they can actually be constructive conversations, because it's about, in my opinion, removing distractions, especially if this is coming from a situation where it wasn't earned money by the couple to begin with. Then perhaps there's a sensitivity to creating the legacy of someone else's sacrifices and hard work to go to where they would simply want it to come from, right? Being a first generational wealth creator, desirous of that myself, like I would love, right, for those to help out generations in my family. And I can understand why somebody would be like, okay, I think I really want to make sure this goes to X, Y, and Z. So there's a respect, I think, from past generations that come into play there, for one. There also could be some business reasons as to why this comes into play. We had another client where if they did not sign a prenup, they were going to lose their shares in their business, right? Because that can become a really messy situation, especially when we're talking about multi-generational businesses. So there are things that are not meant to be insensitive or personal when it comes to this discussion. If you talk about a prenup, it doesn't mean that you're trying to prep for a divorce. That's not correlated. That's not true.
That's the thing. There's just such a stigma around like prenup. It's like, I feel like when I've talked about it like to friends and stuff, and it's like, but wait, like, aren't you just like expecting the marriage to fail then? No, you're not.
And the thing is, that's always a reality, that relationships break up, change, they fail. My personal opinion, again, is I think actually looking at something like this could very well help prevent some of that, because the statement you're also making is, I don't care about X, Y, and Z, right? Why are you there? So it is applicable to different situations. There are situations where there's not things before the marriage to go into, and it probably doesn't make any sense to incur the cost and time to go into it. And then there are situations where I think it just is a respectful decision, and like anything else, just gonna be about how you talk about it with each other.
Yeah, I heard something about I think prenups recently that I like the way they phrased it. It was like, who do you want to decide who gets what? Y'all are the judge. And I would personally want to decide. I don't know.
That's a good point. Nobody loves uncertainty.
No.
I mean, we say the same thing in business, right? When someone's like, oh, what do I want to like create from an operating agreement? Do it now while things are good. Yeah. Because then you can talk about it easier. Right. So absolutely. I think that's a great point. Sounds like something Gary would say. But it
does sound like something Gary would say.
I get it. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Spelling it out now, there's an advantage of doing that as opposed to when things are really kind of hitting the fan.
Yeah. And along those same lines, again, not that prenups end in divorce. However, something to also be aware of is maybe understand how your state treats spousal support or child support.
Yeah.
Something to keep in mind.
We see this all the time too. We kind of mentioned already with the gift thing,
a little bit,
but like love languages are real things. So how does that relate to your money? It's probably going to be replicated in your money. Like is quality of time with people important? Is gifts important?
Yeah.
Are acts of service important? So is it important to be able to support, and I think we'll touch on this later too, be able to support a partner if they want to do X, Y, and Z, and know that like your spouse, like you signed up for this, or did you not because you talked about this ahead of time, and so you're going to pick up X, Y, and Z so that person can do whatever. Is gifts really important to them? Some of us, it's not, right? But some people it is. I mean, I'll give an example. It's not a romantic example, again, mainly because I don't have a lot of examples like that, right? From talking about earlier. But right, I won't accept those gifts. But like there was earlier, middle of last year for a birthday gift, I had some siblings that wanted to get me a grill. And they could afford the grill. It's a nice grill. I have the grill. So it was a nice grill. It's a nice grill.
It's a nice grill.
And I couldn't do it. I just couldn't. I couldn't handle receiving this gift.
Sounds about right.
To the point where I'm like, give me the gift and I'm like, return it or donate it. So, and one of my brothers came to Madison and he took me out. We went out to lunch together and he's like, I want to talk about the grill. And I was like,
intervention about the grill.
And I think I probably had a couple 4-letter words or so. I'm not talking about this grill, right? Don't know. And he said, look, for a long time in my childhood, in other siblings' childhoods, I gave them support financially and emotionally and so on, because they're all younger than me. And they really wanted to give that back. And it was upon that time where I realized that gift actually was a gift for me, but it wasn't just for me, right? It was also them and making them feel good that they can give something back to me. So I accepted that grill. We use the phrase all the time here. Sometimes you just have to accept the grill. So nonetheless, understand those languages to people and really realizing that their language is not necessarily your language, but that they might be trying. And there's just money's gonna ebb and flow into those kind of things about.
I do think this is kind of the area where earlier examples about like the hair and the trips and stuff. I think this is where it really starts coming into play as well, because I feel like at this point you're kind of past the honeymoon phase. You're not like, oh, it's so cute that she spends so much time on her hair. Now it's like, gosh, why does she keep spending all her money on this? But it's going to be important to maintain that awareness and then maintain like, oh, this is really important to her. So I got to keep remembering that, just like my grilling. It's so important to me.
No, you're 100% right.
Yeah, because it's really, I feel like it's really easy to lose context, like the further away you get. And then it's just like, I'm so irritated. I got to wait so long. But right. I think it's just where it becomes most important to maintain that like empathy and that compassion and that understanding.
Yes.
So
speaking of empathy and compassion, understanding, another piece that we see come into play at this point in a relationship is other family members. What? Start interjecting.
What other family members get involved in your romantic relationship?
Yeah, what's the saying? Like, you marry the family, right? That's the situation. And so that can create all sorts of things. It can create dependencies. Mm-hmm. If you have to take care of a partner. Mm-hmm. A partner. If you have to take care of a parent, for example, that your partner should be aware of. Sometimes that writing is on the table early. It's on the wall, whatever the saying is. So you need to like be like, hey, how do you feel about this? Yeah. Maybe it means someone moves in at some point, huge undertaking financially, as well as just overall in life. Or it could be a situation where maybe family is contributing to college savings for kids, or just betterment of life from a financial standpoint. And does that come with strings?
Do they have some opinions?
And is it and should you listen to those opinions? Yeah. Again, not a right or wrong, but they're making a gift. Does that gift, even if they say it doesn't come with strings, is it important for you to feel like it?
Are these secret strings?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or maybe you as the recipient feel like it doesn't come with strings, but out of respect,
sure,
I want to do X, Y, and Z. And does your partner get that?
Absolutely.
Right.
Like and subscribe.
Thank you for taking the time to start your journey of thinking differently and listening to LBW talk about stuff they love. Until next time.